Dylan Murray Show. I'm here with my guest.
All right, okay. All right, so we have all seen Attack the Block, released in 2011, directed by Joe Cornish. And I think it's now an easy concept to understand that the beginning of the film is Act 1. That's when Act 1 starts. But the real question lies in where is the inciting incident?
That's a good question, Brian.
Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, I think the inciting incident is fairly obvious. Like, we think that it's here's the thing. There's the larger inciting incident is the whole kind of flow, like the flowing scene where she gets mugged, the nurse gets mugged by the gang led by Moses, like the gang of kids, and then the alien comes, and then Moses fights with the alien and kills him. I think that second part is the inciting incident because the aliens become the main conflict of the film throughout Act 2.
Right.
So it's his first encounter, it's the boy's first encounter with that main source of conflict.
Okay, so you're saying that the inciting incident is not the the meeting of, Moses and Sam is her name, played by Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
Not when they meet and they attempt to rob her, but the inciting incident is when the alien comes down and when they attack the alien.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you making
sorry, go.
Are you making a distinction between when the alien comes and smashes the car, or is it when Moses goes into the car to encounter the alien?
I would say the second that Moses encounters something that is supernatural and completely upended.
So that would be the meteor smashing the car, correct?
This is interesting. If we're I would just consider that all of that scene the inciting incident. But if we're trying to break it down into individual moments, then it gets more complicated. I'm not completely sure yet. I think the minute we realize that it is some alien creature, not necessarily the meteor. Well, I mean they're all beats. But the moment we realize that this is an alien, this is what they look like, or not because it's a female, so it looks slightly different. But this is that alien.
Yeah, the moment we understand. So, I'd say the interaction between Moses and Sam, that's beginning of, a smaller conflict after film, their, relationship. But if we look at the larger conflict, I do agree that it's when the alien comes down. But I think it's probably the moment that they are attacked by the alien, and, that fight goes down.
Well, I think we should get into the specifics of how that moment functions as an inciting incident, because I think it's so... it's such a weird inciting incident because it's so stagnant. It just happened, and when they don't really the rest of the movie is the trajectory of the movie is not from that moment. They just kind of talk about it, oh, we saw an alien, bro, and then it just kind of it doesn't move into the Act 2 stuff, which is what the inciting incident is supposed to do, right?
No. I thought the inciting incident is not necessarily a moment of when the conflict starts. That was his bit. That was the professor's big thing.
It comes back later on.
It kind of it's when you're introduced to the thing that will become the source of conflict.
Right.
And
but
so
I'm just saying it's weird that it's not an immediate source of at first it's a moment of victory for them. I'm not saying it was the inciting. I'm just saying it's a weird way to have. It's a weird inciting incident in that it doesn't it's just it's a weird pause, a weird long 15-minute thing where they're just bragging about the fact that they kill the alien.
But I think that's what the inciting incident is supposed to do. It's supposed to it's not supposed to immediately lead into the action that is in the second act. It's supposed to be it's the meet cute is maybe things don't develop with romantic comedies. They don't develop immediately after they meet and kind of think they like each other. It's things slowly develop, and then in Act 2, that's their relationship.
Right. It's just putting the concept out there for you. But even so, it's because so much other stuff happened before the next time we see the aliens. It's all the other stuff comes off as more important, and it just kind of seems such a minor. That moment seems so minor.
Well, I think when you look at the film, it sets sort of everything in motion because it's they of course the alien is brought there, of course. But then they go and they meet they go throughout the town. They establish all the characters.
Yeah. Right.
Through the use of going from the alien to the weed
So
room.
are we talking about characterizing Act 1 now?
No, what I just want to add to the inciting incident. So I think what you're saying about the we have this big thing that happens and then we have 15 minutes of them bragging about it. I think that's actually exposition in order to show us what type of guys these characters are.
Yeah.
And I think that them bragging about it shows just kind of what their persona is. Because, like, what we've seen in the film from these characters, like, how I would describe them is, like, tough guys, like, young boys who are, like, acting like tough guys and putting on this mask. That's also why, you know, you see the skinny kid is wearing, like, a huge puffy coat and, like, a hat and everything just so you can't see how skinny he is. And just, I think that the like extended period of time that we see them talking about and bragging about what they've done and trying to convince everyone is just to set us up for that, to let us know what type of characters these are.
Yeah.
So right. Yeah.
I think it works perfectly as an inciting incident because it introduces like what the conflict will become later, but then after that, you know, it's more of the Act 1 sort of introduction of characters and the world and everything surrounding that. But then later on in Act 2, it does become the source of conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So our working thing is that the inciting incident is when there's a meteor thing, they're in the car, and then they're like, shit, what is it? There's something in there, and then they come in, and then this thing like.
Yeah.
So
comes out
are
of
we
the car
considering
and
the mugging scene and the alien scene, not the scene where they're chasing the alien, but where they encounter the alien? Is that the same scene itself? Because it is like the same location and everything.
I think they all flow into each other so that
Yeah.
it feels like one scene, but it actually isn't. And then so like the specific moment with the car, and that is the inciting incident, but not the mugging and not the
So
killing.
you'd
of
say
the
there's
alien.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not the meteor. Okay.
So I'd say the meteor and the first encounter where he gets his face bit, I'd say those are the same scene. And I think those can be like,
Both
it's
the
argued
inciting
that they're both the inciting incident because the meteor is like this shocking, jarring thing that happens that introduces us to the aliens, but we don't actually know what the aliens are until we see inside the car where it bites his face.
Yeah.
And
I kind of agree
And
there.
yes, the alien, because it's like the female, it looks different from the other aliens. And there's an argument there that the first encounter with the big hairy gorilla alien things there's an argument that also could be an inciting incident because we actually haven't seen the true monsters yet.
But I think, the female, as we learn later, the pheromones thing, that's the conflict.
That's
Even
literally-
though it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
about,
That's
yeah.
a source of conflict.
even though it's not literally the female alien that's like becomes the problem later, it's her.
still the source of the conflict.
Yeah, it's still
Okay,
that's
yeah.
the inciting incident.
And then
Yeah.
and then we also see
But here's the thing that I'm still unsure about. Do you know? Did the pheromones come on Moses at like a specific moment?
when he killed it.
Okay, so when
Because
he's
the blood, and because we see
Oh.
under the UV lights later in the film, when he's in the weed room,
okay.
we see the blood on him that we couldn't see before, and I think
Oh,
that's
so
why
then maybe my mind has changed. Maybe that's the inciting incident because the blood, if he, let's say, shot this alien and then the blood didn't get on him, then the pheromones wouldn't be on him. Then the whole movie, like then the
Well, no,
the
the
main
aliens would
conflict
still
could-
the aliens would still come in search of it.
No,
They
they would
would
still,
wait
but they would
behind.
search the female. They wouldn't search John, or
Right.
not John, but Moses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that a case can be made that is the inciting incident because
So the moment in the
conflict-
shed where we see him kill him off screen, he kills
Yeah.
the first female off screen. Well, they all do.
Yeah,
but
it's a
it's
good-
like mainly Moses.
That's a
Okay.
good
Okay.
Okay, so those are our two main ones, and we could hash it out, but I think those are the two that I'm like still not really sure about. And I think,
Yeah. So should we
They
just
could
go
both-
around? We go around individually and kind of say what we believe is the first inciting incident, and then we can move on to plot point 1.
Okay. No. Just characterizing Act 1. Did we already do that?
No, we have not done that.
We did it a little bit, but okay, let's go. I will say I could just stick with my guns and say that it's the moment that it's revealed that it's an alien. Or I think I'm going to spin it and I will say that it is the moment that the blood, because the plot would be completely different if the blood did not get on him
Right.
and he wasn't killed in that exact way. So that off-screen moment.
I think it's hard. It's hard for me to say that just because that's such a weird. Like it's too subtle an inciting incident.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
going
we
for
can-
like
we
a
can also-
weird
we can all- we can
unconventional
agree on
thing. Like
yeah,
I'm
so-
not like
Yeah.
yeah.
I think if you go in the broader there's a question here I think about like the context. You know what I mean? Like when you know about like the whole blood pheromone thing,
Yeah.
now you can go back and say that was the inciting incident.
Yeah.
But so the question is, should the inciting incident be something that you have to look back retrospectively as the viewer and be like, oh, that was the inciting incident? Like that shouldn't even be a question if it's really the inciting incident. It has to be something like in that moment, you know, oh shit, this is what like things are happening now. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So
I'm not saying that. I don't know. Like that. I don't know if that's like the
that's
academic.
interesting. I'm gonna stick with what I said just because I don't want to keep.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
what do you think you're? What do you think?
I just think I think even without the context, without the context of the blood, when he kills the alien is the inciting incident because that synthesizes both the retrospective perspective, like the retrospective inciting incident thing, and just the regular inciting incident thing. Because regardless of whether or not you know about the blood with the tracking of the aliens, you learn later in the film that is the case. And so either way, even if you don't know about the blood pheromone situation, it's still the inciting incident.
Okay, so you're saying
Because it
you're
still
saying
sets
the
off the
third
action, right?
option, not the one where it's introduced in the car.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I would say it's the moment that he is attacked by the alien. He gets like the slash on his face. Before he goes off and they kill it in the park or whatever. Because I think no matter what, that is the introduction of what will become the source of conflict. Because even if they did not kill the alien, the other aliens, we see it, they're coming.
Yeah.
If they killed it a different way, the aliens are still coming. No matter what, they're there. And the source of conflict, I mean, specifically for we're focusing on our characters. It's John Boyega, Moses' character is the one that's gonna kind of be hunted because he has the pheromones. But no matter what, the source of conflict will be the aliens coming to that city because the female alien is there. So I think the moment that we're introduced to that female alien is a inciting incident.
Yeah, and I'd partially agree with you. I think the inciting incident is actually when the meteor strikes the car, as opposed to when the alien actually engages Moses. And that's because I think that's really the first supernatural thing that we see. I think that's the
Is supernatural or word for that? Like it's
or
more
extraterrestrial. You're right. That's the first extraterrestrial thing that we see, and it's a violent, jarring moment that's out of character of the real world, and that kind of introduces us to the theme of the film,
true.
and it sets off the action, and it's like a spectacular entrance of the antagonists in the film. So that's what I would agree.
It does introduce the idea within the film that there are these extraterrestrial, non-ordinary things that are going to take place. And I really do see what you're saying. I just think it's when the alien's introduced and we know it's the alien.
Yeah. Okay, so we have
Yeah.
4 different
All right.
incidents, which is very interesting.
I have to go. Alright, so now we're going to talk about Act 1. And this is going to be the exposition section of the film where we get to meet all the characters. And we get to know our main characters. And it's slower, and we've just been introduced to the main conflict with the inciting incident. But now we have to actually get attached to the characters, so when they're in danger, we care.
Yeah. We kind of get to know them through their nicknames. What is it? Moses just goes by his name, which I think is significant.
Highlights him as a main.
Yeah. Played by John Boyega. And then it goes into this kid Pest, Dennis, or some of them have nicknames, some of them don't. Biggs, Jerome, and so it's just all these kind of characters. They're in this environment. They just call it the block, and it's South London
We're
housing
introduced to
projects.
sort of how they portray themselves.
Yeah.
They're
They're like
boastful,
fun-loving
they're
and
fun and they're
boastful,
boastful,
and like
yeah.
they're just kids. I think that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bottom line is they're just teenage boys.
And then on top of that, we're also introduced to
two little kids.
well, the little kids, and then we're introduced to
the girls.
the girl.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Sam.
Yeah, we're introduced to Sam because we get to watch her with that whole exchange in where she's scared after being mugged, and then goes to the cops and everything. And I think that sets her up as a very sympathetic character. And the boys, I wouldn't even argue are good guys. They mug her. I mean, she's like a defenseless woman, and they
I think
go and rob her in the
later
beginning.
on in the film,
but
in Act
they
two-
make them
Yeah.
both. They humanize
but
both of
in
them.
Act
That's the
right,
whole
but
point.
yeah.
Act one,
when they're setting them up, the boys aren't especially sympathetic. And we then see
It flips it.
Sam, and then later in the film, this is flipped around, which is kind of character redemption that you expect in most films.
Mm-hmm.
But like Sam in the beginning is set up as like a very innocent, nice person who is kind of caught up in the situation accidentally. This was my
I
interpretation.
think nice might be stretching it. She's not really nice, you know what I mean?
She's just
Okay.
like nothing.
Yeah.
Or she's not nothing, but she's just a woman being mobbed by a bunch of like mostly black
Yeah.
guys, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's like
Okay.
a very
We're also
it's very
introduced to
racial, obviously.
what's his name? The guy that was in the weed room.
Ron?
The
Ron
one
the big
from
guy, Ron the big dude.
So yeah, it introduces the weed room, which is probably
Oh
the
no,
most
hi-hats is the name.
hi-hats. That
Hi-hats.
the weed room is the most important location in the whole movie, so it introduces that.
I just want to backtrack for a minute. Do you think that we care about the characters because they're in danger? Like, do you think that the danger is what makes you care about them and not?
I mean,
Like, I don't- you don't-
I was invested in them because they were funny.
Mhm.
Like I
Yeah.
don't know, that scene where they were passing around the joint in the weed room
Yeah.
was just like
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
And then just the awkwardness of that, like, it introduced
Oh,
this
yeah,
smart guy
Yeah,
who
the
was
guy
fine.
from university. What's
Yeah,
his
yeah.
name?
Uni guy.
Yeah, and then I
Bruce-
also I
Bruce was
I
Bruce.
think that another part of the exposition that we see with the boys
Luke Treadaway.
is when we see them each call their parents, and we see them have these discussions with their parents where they're trying to act all cool and tough with their boys, but then they're like, "Sorry, mom, no, I'm just at the movies. I'll make sure the car's back tomorrow. Don't
I'll be
worry."
back- I'll be
and
back
they
by
like
10.
yeah, like I'll be back by 10, and like their voices are higher. They're not like using they just don't sound as like tough, and like they seem like they take off their mask for their mom, or maybe even put on a new one in order to not get in trouble from this authority figure that's even scarier than the monsters in a way, because they're trying
Well, I think in the initial, before we know about the monster problem, it's their moms are as scary as the cops for them.
Well, would you
Well,
say
like-
we don't know about the monster problem because the
Oh,
very
they
first
do. They
encounter-
do know
yeah.
about them, but they don't think much of it.
Oh yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
They also haven't seen the meteors just like raining down all over
Yeah,
the
they
place.
haven't gotten that from yet.
They have.
Yeah.
They only seen one, and they're like, "Oh, sick! We just killed this one thing." And
Yeah, I
then
think
later
sorry.
we see a bunch of other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important, like in Act 1, that they we do kind of see them as just these young kids,
Yeah.
caught up in sort of this gang mentality that's going
Environment.
on.
Yeah.
Their interactions with those kind of kids, and we're introduced to those two little kids.
It's like Mayhem and
Mayhem and
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like himself with a P. Mayhem and what's
is it Pyro?
Yeah.
something like that.
I don't know.
Something really intimidating like that.
Yeah, but we're introduced to the characters. We're introduced to show their characterization. There's a lot of setup that will be seen later on in the film.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers the characterization of Act 1.
But do you sympathize with them because they're in danger, or because I feel like the comedic thing isn't like necessarily, like that's not like inherently sympathy.
Yeah, I think for me personally, because they were portrayed as just these kind of young kids caught up in this kind of environment,
Yeah.
and there were sort of these human moments that I felt sort of connected to, of just them being these kids and they're trying to put on this front. I sort of connected to that, and that's why I cared about them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they're charming and funny, which makes
Yeah.
us care about
That's
them.
why
Yeah.
I think the humor is inherently, to me, attractive. 'Cause,
Exactly.
like a funny character, they can be flawed, and as long as like you can tell they're a good person, like I can relate to that.
Okay.
But yeah, let's
Move on.
are
You can introduce it.
Let's get into plot point 1 real quick, guys.
Okay.
So just to go back with the definition real quick, it's supposed to be a moment of commitment and irreversibility. Which is what make in this movie I think it's particularly hard to identify because it's asking you if it's like really adhering to the conventional 3-act structure, it should be pretty clear when plot point 1 is happening, right? Or that just made it my interpretation. But I think in this movie it's particularly hard to identify that moment of commitment because I couldn't find like a moment like in the main plot that was just like, okay, this is what we're doing. That was like within the time frame that plot point 1 is supposed to occur. So I at first, before I finished the movie, I thought it was the moment where he's being asked to sell crack for hi-hats, but because that plot line just kind of
I think it's an important moment, but
It's
I don't
not-
think it's.
it's not the moment.
Yeah. I don't think it's more the irreversible.
I think the only.
I think there is a clear moment.
I think I think the only like significance of him being asked to sell crack is just him getting put in handcuffs because of that, because that was what they arrested him for.
Yeah, but I also think there's a moment of interaction between the two characters where Hayat's like, "This is my block," And I think Moses.
But
sort of
the
then
thing
goes
is,
on to
Hi-Hat's
take
conflict
that.
with him is kind of a side plot.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree on that statement. I agree that I don't think that's an inciting incident that generates.
Plot point one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Giancarlo, you were gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that like, even though I wasn't like, I was a little distracted at this point, but I think it was 20 minutes in roughly. I have it here, where they're all like, let's go get them. They see them raining down
Yeah, I
from
completely agree.
the apartment room of the drug dealer, and they're like, okay, let's get them. And then they all go back to their houses. They get their like weapons, their bats, their like samurai swords and stuff, and it's like
Yeah.
kind of comedic and like, in a way, funny, but also like it pumps you up. It's very
Yeah.
gung ho.
Right.
I agree.
And so
But-
that is irreversible. Once they go out there,
Exactly.
I think it's-
then everything, then the
Everything
thing with the woman
actually
and
is set
the
in
cops
motion
and
based
everything
upon
is set on.
Yeah.
So that's what launches this whole second act of them outside of the
So that little
apartments.
montage
Yeah,
of
I'm
them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
talking to
say- I
parents
wouldn't
No,
and-
say
I think the
montage.
moment
Yeah.
they decide to leave the
Yeah.
weed,
The moment they're like,
apartment.
let's go fight these aliens, and they run outside.
I'm
Yeah,
not-
I think
I'm not-
that's
yeah,
the-
I'm not
that's
saying
the
you're-
point.
Let's go look with these aliens.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
okay.
not saying
What-
you're wrong. I'm just saying like it like the way the movie's paced and like because it's so short, like so
you
short.
glossed over it really
Yeah,
easily,
it's
like
like-
because I did too. Like
Right.
I didn't think about
And,
that.
but it's like
Yeah.
with everything that's like supposed to be like a solid point of the 3-act structure happens so quickly and like so sporadic. Like even their decision to do it is like it's barely even a decision. It's just kind of like an impulse and they're like, yeah, let's go do this. Like
Mhm.
I guess. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I also would argue that maybe the plot point one is not that moment, but in fact it's the moment where the monster, the alien, kills the two police officers, and they break him out, and like I think that's the inciting incident because
You mean the platform one, platform
or
one,
platform one, my bad. Because we've been set up for everything, and now we have this moment where someone outside of the circle is killed, and so I think that kind of commits them to having to like stick with this and having to survive because like it's a much bigger problem than just themselves now. So they're so now like this is actually a threat to their country and their block, and they need to save it, and they are the only ones who know about it, so they're the only ones who can do anything, therefore it commits them to this role, this heroic role.
Yeah, I see what you're
I see what you're saying.
I think it's a little bit too like interpreted, like because it's not like they're not. It's I don't know, man. It's just like the way that these moments happen, the way they come up is just so like.
Yeah, it
Okay,
happens
just
very fast. But I
Exactly.
think here in the moment that we were initially talking about with the let's go kill these, like even though it's impulsive, it happens fast. It's not like very planned out.
Oh, the
Even
let's
though-
go kill these moments. Yeah,
let's
you're
go
right.
kill these aliens. I think that's a very clear commitment to a
Yeah.
place.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
then
forgot
it's
about that line. 'cause when I
Later,
was
like
watching
plot
it.
point two, it gets upended, and it's
Mhm.
not just kill the alien. It still ultimately
Yeah.
is, but the situation changes a lot after that. But the let's go kill the aliens is the irreversible thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I would
you're
say,
right.
I think that's more obvious than I would say like the inciting incident was. But let's go on to kind of characterizing Act Two,
Okay.
because I think we could talk for a long time, and we're only a third of the way through.
Mhm.
We're a third of the way.
Yeah.
So,
Act two.
okay, Act Two. How would you characterize it? I think it's like the professor said, it's supposed to be the guts of the film. So this is
Yeah. It's the
the
majority
chase,
of the film.
the action, where some of the most fun scenes happened. Not the climax, but just these kind of like
There's
the kid
fun
gets
moments.
trapped in the trash can. The cops like get destroyed by the aliens. He hits hard hats like head on in a collision.
Mhm,
So just
mhm.
these kind of like
And
fun,
then
like
Hard Hats-
action packed, but also kind of scary moments that kind of keep you.
Yeah, and then Hardhead's like
Invested.
sidekick is killed, and they're followed by the cops, and we have the moment where Moses is like put under arrest very violently. I actually thought that scene was like I did think that painted the police in more of a kind of sub like villain based on how they like slammed his head into the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's definitely it's pretty clear what's leading up, and then we then see plot point two, or no, not plot point 2, the midpoint.
Well, I think that's it's a bit early to discuss the midpoint.
It's okay.
Act 2.
Yeah,
so.
because the midpoint. I mean, Act 2 is very long. Like,
Yeah.
so it starts
Act-
when they
yeah.
all decide to leave, and then it ends. We'll talk about that later, but it ends a while later, and so a lot
Yeah,
happens.
a lot of
There's
stuff happens.
slow moments of like
Yeah, there's slow
dialogue with
moments
the
of
nurse
interaction.
and them getting to know each other better, and kind of getting
Yeah,
to
there's
empathize
also,
with
plot
there's
point-
that.
Do you think that they're
And then
against?
there's the
do you thi-
subplot with the coke and
Okay,
the hard hats chasing Moses, and yeah, there's a lot.
You think that they're? Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead.
All right. So you think that they're getting to know each other? Do you think that the length of Act 2, allowing for them to get to know each other and develop their social relationship, do you think that that's part of like, you think that relationship building contributes to the rising intensity? Because like that's not a trait we talked about a lot, but it's like Act 2 is where you have to build those relationships. There's no other time in the movie where you have enough time to do that. So do you
Well,
think
yeah, definitely, for sure. I would agree with that because the rising intensity, with the more attached we are to the characters, the more
attached there to each other.
attached and attached there to each other, and like the more that we want our characters to survive, the more intense the viewing experience is for us when the characters are put in danger. So in the beginning, when they're mugging Santa, I don't think that like we're not very sympathetic towards them in the beginning. But then as we get to know these kids more, as we get to see kind of who they really are, why they're doing what they are, the situations that they're in, I think that makes us more attached to them. Therefore, it increases the tension, and we can literally like graph the amount of attachment and suspense that we're experiencing throughout the film.
Yeah, I think an important aspect of that too is in the way of raising the intensity is the two deaths we see, because we see first the death of Dennis when they're all in the room with their friends. They have the nurse there. And he pulls the toy gun on the aliens. I think that's an important moment because that's the first we had the death of Hi-Hat's like friend or whatever.
his
But this is the
henchman.
first
Big win.
central character death
Yeah.
of a character that we knew. Like we had
you know what's,
a part of it.
yeah, and you know what's interesting about that death too? Like if you're talking to connect that to the social relationship building thing, is that Dennis is the only one in the movie to like when they're committing to like putting down their differences to side with the nurse, he's the only one to be like no, and then the next couple scenes he dies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't know. I just think that's interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
that's fair. And yeah, we also see the death of Jerome later on, like sort of surrounded by like that Laura Green mist or whatever it is, and he gets killed there. So I think those are
That's
two
right
important
on
things.
the edge of like
Yeah.
that's right when Act 2 is ending. And I think what also Act 2 also does is it provides not like explicit preachy political commentary, but it starts like this just the kids are just talking about their experiences, and you kind of get to see it from like how they view the police and how they're just like, yeah, they'll just like arrest us for like no reason anyway,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
why not rob people, like why not
Yeah.
try to get some money.
I think that too is where
From
kind of
this, like-
the community of the block is sort of built. When we
Yeah.
see more characters from it and how they all interact, and we have the
Yeah.
nurse kind of joining them, and she sees.
Yeah,
all of
she goes
this.
from like outsider to insider in Act
Exactly.
2. That's like
Yeah.
what a big thing that happens.
And so
Okay.
I think we can talk about plot point 2 now, which is
Do you want to introduce it?
plot point 2.
just keep it fun.
Yeah, because you introduced, we have a loop.
Yeah.
So you were the first. So
Okay, go ahead.
And I was the last.
Alright, so we have plot point 2, which is what sort of generates the conflict. I have no idea what.
No, it's a moment in the film that completely undercuts what we think is important in plot point 1.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
moment that sets off the climax, the race. to the
Exactly.
finish.
Wait. We should have
So-
a midpoint. We have to have a midpoint.
Okay.
Midpoint.
I'll talk about the midpoint real quick because
wait. We are talking about the midpoint.
all right, I'm gonna so I think that to me the midpoint was very obvious. I think it was just after Moses kills the
The alien in the kitchen with
first
the-
alien in
with
the
the
kitchen
sword.
with the samurai sword, and he's standing over it and says a line. I can't recall exactly what it was, but he's standing over it, and we just see like low angle shot, I believe,
Yeah.
of Moses holding the sword, and it looks like a movie
Yeah, if
poster,
we're
and
talking
that
movie
just
poster.
screamed to me like midpoint. If anyone else has any,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If we're
Yeah,
talking,
that's
if we're
true.
talking movie poster moment,
Yeah.
like a big moment of the film, I think that's got that. I think that's it.
Well, we should
Because
talk.
I mean, wait there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's because we have all the characters coming around. He's holding a sword. Just killed a monster in the kitchen, and that's sort of
This is a badass.
yeah. I think it's sort of representational of kind of like a lot of the movie. Just like these monsters invading our, like these aliens invading our homes. Yeah, and then but also there's also a little bit after that another moment that I think could be considered the midpoint. It's when the nurse decides like she decides to join the boys or whatever in their quest to kill the aliens,
Mhm.
and she decides to help them.
Right. So I think with those two examples too, we should talk about the thing we talked about yesterday about like the distinction between a conceptual and like an image movie. Like
Yeah.
if there's a distinction between the two, A and B. If so, which one is more important in actually serving the purpose of being a midpoint?
Yeah, I think the visual definitely does, because if he talks about a movie poster is obviously visual and not conceptual. So I think the moment that Justin brought up, because I
Yeah.
did bring up like, oh, the moment where they all join, where like the nurse is like officially, or Sam is officially like in the crew and they all like join forces, is like kind of this midpoint where they're all like, yeah, let's go, let's do this.
I think that's
I think
that's
that,
the
like-
midpoint because. I mean, literally look at the image. Like I
Yeah,
don't understand
but,
together. It's
but
all-
there's
whole
no,
movie's
but
about
like
community.
visually, there's no. It just like cuts in between them. Like there's no shot of them all standing together.
Right, but
And-
mechanically speaking, though, it serves the purpose of a midpoint. The
Yeah,
him killing
It's,
And-
it's sort of representation of the entire theme of the movie, really.
Yeah, yeah.
The entire the theme of just community coming together.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're arguing that them coming together in the apartment is it, and them deciding that like where Sam agrees to fix his leg, and then they decide that they don't want to be upset with each other anymore, with the one exception,
Yeah.
and they want to be together. So, but I
It was
actually
after the monster was killed.
Yeah.
After they leave the
yeah.
apartment.
The
Yeah.
exact moment that I'm talking about is 44 minutes and 19 seconds, which is almost exactly halfway through the movie. There's 44 minutes 19 seconds and 43 minutes and 51 seconds, like remaining. So that's why, and I actually think that this changes Moses. This moment changes Moses from the like the character from the first part where he's like all putting on this mask and he killed the small monster and he's bragging about it, to a like developed like more adult mature man who is doing what he thinks he's beginning to do what's right instead of what's cool.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think the midpoint should be like reflected in one character. I think it should be reflecting the entire
Yeah.
theme of the movie,
Yeah.
or the entire concept of the movie.
But he's the main character though.
I mean, yeah, but
I
he's not
think-
the only character.
I think that him standing over the monster with the blood, I'll buy that as the midpoint at this point, because like I was thinking that like conceptually, like yeah, when they join together, they all tell each other their names, but
Mhm.
I think sometimes you just got to go with something that just feels more obvious, like
So do we have
in terms of this midpoint.
Do we essentially have a
you guys
split
can
vote
disagree,
here?
obviously.
No,
I think
yeah,
me
yeah,
and
yeah.
Justin agree on this, and then
Yeah,
them two.
I
with
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we should move on.
plot points two.
We got plot point 2.
Okay, plot point 2 I feel is very obvious.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Is this plot point 2, which is the moment in the film that completely undercuts what we think is important
Yeah,
from
yeah.
plot
Or
point
well,
1?
it just
Uh,
changes the situation.
Yeah,
completely
exactly.
up
So,
And then it begins
Brian, do you
after
want
the
to
race.
go ahead because you're
I
very
mean, I
excited?
think it's really obvious. It's when they're all in the weed room. We got Brewis is there. We just saw the death of Jerome.
And who is Brewis played by again? What's his Luke Treadaway?
So we have all them in the weed
Yeah.
room. We have Sam there. We have Moses there, and they're all talking. They're all kind of screwed. They're like they don't know what to do at this point because they're
Yeah.
just surrounded by aliens. There's no hope. But then they notice, the marks, the stains on Moses, and they're like, what is this? And then Brewis realizes that it might be some sort of hormone or pheromone released by the female alien onto him. He sort of understand. He kind of just described that whole concept that they came here to follow the female alien. But then the moment they realize that, Moses then realizes that he does have a way to defeat them. And so I think that upends the entire sort of trajectory of the film. So
Yeah.
at this point, we're sort of just going, they're running for aliens, but now they have a means to beat the alien,
Right.
to beat this whole group of aliens. So I think that's got to be
And
And
popular.
then
that-
it sets
that
off
goes-
the final
Yeah,
mission.
exactly. And then
Right.
they have the race. It's
That's
another
right.
run. Yeah.
I think I think that's actually like a good. I think it goes back to kind of a theme of like community, because like if you think about that moment as like a moment where they have power against like this external, this thing that they think that they're powerless against, which is the aliens. It's like kind of like an analogy also for like how this community feels in relation to the police. Like they realize that by like they have the pheromone thing, right? But also the community realizes that when they band together, they can stand up against the police too.
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, so it's like a
Yeah.
foreshadowing of that
Yeah.
realization.
Yeah.
So I think that makes perfect
And I
sense.
think it just really begins Act 3 because now we have a literal race. He's
Yeah.
gonna run, and he had to have a plan now.
So, all right. Next, we're going to be talking about Act 3, which, as we learned in class, is a breathless race to the finish. And I mean, it's pretty clear where this starts. I
Yeah.
think John Carley said some great points about it. Do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, so it starts with a conversation when, so they're in the weed room. They're, like Brian was saying, they're at a very low point. So that's plot point 2. And
They figure out what they're gonna do.
they figure out that they can defeat them
Mhm.
because they figure out the pheromones and that it's just him.
Would you say
And
like,
so
oh,
he's like, he just gives a general outline of like, okay, I need to lure them to somewhere where we can blow them up, all of them up. And then so that's what their plan is, to have Sam kind of just leave the gas kind of going on the stoves and then they have, what's the name, Pest, prepare the firecrackers, and then Moses is in the room kind of preparing to be the person that like launches those firecrackers. And then they have the moment where he gives the ring back to her, that it's kind of like a I'm sorry, like connection moment.
Yeah.
do you, so do you think a big part of like the Act 3 thing is like closure? Do you
Yeah.
think that closure can happen throughout the entirety of Act 3, or does it have to be something that happens at the
Well,
end?
I think there's like a
No,
difference between
that
the
is
main
a-
conflict and like personal little.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
moments of
that's a
resolution.
subplot. That was a
Yeah.
moment of closure that I was just describing.
Yeah,
where he
yeah,
gives
yeah,
the ring
exactly.
back.
That was
That's
closure between
before
the
the
con-
actual climax.
Yeah.
The actual climax is
The
with
conflict, the conflict
the
part is-
firecrackers, all of the aliens pouring in. That's
Because the
actually-
aliens are the larger conflict of the
Yeah.
film. And then we have the smaller kind of more human interaction conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also think that kind of the amping up of intensity, the as we described as breathless race to the finish. I think that when we see Sam going into the room to open up the gas, where she's at this point where, like throughout the previously in the film, we haven't seen her as vulnerable as this because she's been with the boys. They have been running for their lives, like desperately trying to escape. But she's never at a point where she's hiding and trying to be stealthy because there's so many of them that the minute she's seen, she will just be gobbled up. So I think that this first moment of slow kind of terror that we're seeing here is maybe like one of the most intense moments in the film, which would be like in character with Act 3
Yeah.
being this breathless race.
I think it's
know I've
also
said
important
that-
that we have like multiple characters trying to do all
Yeah, the
these
climax.
different separate things coming together for one like. for
Mhm.
one
Yeah, all
goal.
the strands come
Yeah.
together. Okay, so plot point 3. So we already tried to characterize like Act 3, and then plot point 3 we would say is the moment that the conflict is resolved by all the aliens being blown up in that apartment on the 19th floor. There's a crowd outside the complex. Everyone can see that huge explosion, and maybe there's conflict over that. The moment of the explosion is plot point 3, or him, like us seeing that the main character, the protagonist, has survived when he's
Okay.
hanging off.
Yeah, I
the
think
flag.
that's important.
Or
And
maybe
can
that's
you
just
just
all
clar-
one scene.
Can we
And
clarify
that
something
collectively
first? So-
is plot point 3.
Plot point 3 is when the conflict is resolved.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the thing is,
We'll get to that in a second. I
What?
think. But I think the largest conflict of the film is the aliens, and they die, and that's like they're all gone in that
Yeah,
scene.
that's
Yeah.
the
And
climax.
I think it's important to notice that we see him survive, and we don't see any aliens.
but the
He
thing
can't
is,
go
we
second
also
down.
we don't see him out of conflict though. I mean, he's hanging from the flag.
Yeah,
so
but the largest
he's-
conflict's gone.
But he's not safe until the moment that he climbs up.
That'd be more like closure though, dude. That's just like getting the reassurance that he survived. Like this is what happened.
I think that
You know what I
I
mean?
think the largest conflict is the aliens. And I
Because-
think they're
but-
good in that.
But are we saying that? But would we? this is
Because
up for
the
debate.
feeling of danger is alleviated when you see him hanging off the flag. It's not like, oh my god, we're worried he's gonna fall.
Yeah,
it's like, oh,
I
he
but then why
survived.
did
Like,
they?
I wasn't
Okay,
like,
okay, yeah,
there's
but
no diegetic moment or diegetic, however you say it, where like the characters are like, oh, he's gonna fall,
Oh, yeah,
or what's gonna happen. Like that's part of the narrative. But you as a viewer might be worried about it, but they're not worried about him. So it's like,
so
think
are
the
we saying
largest
that? Are we
conflict
saying
is
though that the that kind of the point of the film is for them to kill the aliens, or that the point of the
Well,
film
not the
is
point,
the
but the conflict, the largest
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what plot point one
is
was.
the
right.
yeah, is or are we more connected to the characters now? So then the characters being safe are just as important as, or like Moses being safe is just as
Right,
important as.
but
But
That's
I don't
important
think
too,
that's
that's
the question.
important.
I don't think that's what's in question. Like
Alright.
we the audience is like, okay, he's not dead.
Yeah, like,
And we
I don't
assume
think
he'll
anyone's
be
really
safe.
thinking he's gonna fall off at that.
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
That was
I'm
me
not
personally.
worried about him falling.
Okay.
Because the concern, you're concerned with the characters as a conflict is manifested in the conflict between them and the aliens.
Yeah.
That's
So if
the
the
concern.
aliens aren't the conflict, other than the police,
Oh
is
yeah,
a whole other thing.
I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to argue the aliens aren't the conflict. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, like if an alien showed up as he's hanging out on Union Jack, and then
Yeah, I actually was while I was watching, I was expecting like one alien to survive, and then he was gonna have a final standoff.
If
which
one
didn't
had,
happen.
the conflict may not.
Yeah,
may
yeah,
not
yeah.
been it. But
I would
think
say
the Mo
I would
scene
say
right
let's
now-
move on. We've established
Yeah.
this. Let's move on.
But I
to
think
it.
yeah.
Let's talk about old denouement, guys.
All right, yeah. I
Okay.
think the question is there denouement technically? Because denouement is he like defines. Fine.
Yeah. So all right, denouement is the conflict-free zone after plot point 3,
It's a
and
moment after, yeah.
I mean, yeah, we'll
There
talk about this.
is conflict throughout. I argue that there might be a small one in denouement. At least in my perspective, there may be a small moment.
Right.
What is the small
But
moment?
it is tough to discern because initially once you know
Well, you
we
gotta
get-
answer the question. When is the small moment?
What is your small
Well, I'll
moment?
get to it in a second, but I think because initially we had that large conflict solved at plot point 3. The aliens are dead, everyone's safe, but then the cops show up, and like the conflict. There's still conflict going on, but I think there's a point to be made at the moment that Sam is talking to the police officers, and they ask her, "Can you identify him or whatever?" And she's like, "They saved me." I think that might be the moment.
But it's like,
No,
it's like a conflict. That in itself is a conflict, right? Because you don't know what's
Yeah,
gonna
because
happen.
you don't know what's gonna
Yeah.
happen to them. What I'd say is the
There was
moment of
no
denouement. I will if I were asked to
Well,
argue
there
for
wasn't
one,
a moment.
is
It's like that everything
yeah.
happens.
If
I think the
I
conflict
would
is
say that the crowd cheering Moses is because I think kind of there's this
Yeah, I think
theme
the
there's
denouement
this
starts
there's
it.
this theme there's this theme throughout the movie of like the police being bad and the police not being able to trust them. They're not here to help. And I think that that scene is showing people chanting Moses who's being carted away, therefore putting like making the public having been brought to that realization. And I think that he's finally getting the recognition that he's always wanted. And yes, he may be being arrested, and we're unsure whether he's going to go to jail. I think that his he's getting something that he's getting the clout and the recognition that he wanted.
Okay,
No,
that's
but that-
great.
but
But
that-
is there still tension in the film?
There's a ton. Look, first of all, look at the shot we were doing. It. The police are still there blocking
He's
them
still
off.
arrested. Yeah,
Right.
that's
And their chanting arises from them asking the police to release him. It's not them like celebrating. They're like asking them to.
But then he smiles in the end.
Right,
because he's proud of being
Yeah,
recognized for.
but is there still tension in the film of whether he is going to jail or not?
Right.
Are we feeling the tension, or is
Yeah.
there tension?
There's a ton of dude. It's like
Well,
he's-
they're all
he's-
getting arrested like harshly,
Yeah.
like getting thrown in cop cars.
right,
And he's also Moses is the only one who's not struggling there. So like,
he's struggling because he's locked in the back of the van.
but what I'm saying is like he is achieving something that he's kind of been
Okay,
chasing. The
that's
whole
a
movie.
great character moment, but the question of denouement is there tension in the film still?
I think there's
Yeah,
I think there is.
catharsis,
Yeah.
but not.
There's
Denouement.
emotional
denouement.
part,
Right.
but I think, yeah. And I think possibly the lack of denouement kind of makes that ending more powerful. Just
Right.
in,
Because if we're to characterize, we keep talking about the political elements of the film. If this is as political as we're talking about it, them leaving that part of the movie like open ended is what emphasizes the fact that it's a continuing issue. This conflict between working class communities and the police is a continuing thing. So they don't shut it off because it
Yeah.
emphasizes the fact that it's going to be a problem for until we address it. So it's like I think that lack of denouement reflects our lack of denouement in conflict with the
exactly.
with the-
Okay,
exactly.
yeah,
I
so-
think that's a genuine point right there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then I think we can agree that like there is it's very there's no
Yeah.
like set point of
It's
denouement.
not a very obvious.
But
thing
we
about
do
this.
have hopeful themes and kind of
Yeah,
hopeful
yeah,
character
yeah.
moments
There's
at the end of the
catharsis in
movie
the end.
that does like wrap up the movie for
Right.
us. But
Yeah.
they're never like home free.
Yeah. So
You
I
know,
think
they're
there's
not,
a
like,
point
on
to be
their-
made that
their
there
rant.
may be denouement in the end with her saying, you know, they saved me and they're all chanting for him. But I think that there's also argument made that, you know, they're still arrested. We don't know. So there is still tension there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered like all the 9 elements of a 3-arc story that was presented to us.
I think that's good.
We are looking.
Oh wait.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're good.
All right.
Oh,
Good job, boys.
Justin, go ahead.
I'll probably need to-